It's amazing to see how Donald Trump says he wants to fight against opioids, and how he wants to stiffen the penalty for those that illegally bring opioids into this country, to the degree that he's talking even the death penalty. Okay? But, and I'm going to let you listen to just a recent video here that was just uploaded, I believe, today, and let you hear what he has to say. But then I want to follow it up with the real problem in this country. And I do want to preface what Donald Trump's about to say by saying this. It's not the opioids that's causing mass shootings in the schools. Did you hear what I said? It is not the opioid epidemic, quote unquote. I'm not minimizing the opioid problem in our country. What I'm saying is it's not opioids that's causing children to shoot up schools or the mass shootings that are taking place in the schools. Okay? And so we're going to follow up this video with the real problem that's not being addressed. The issue that is not being addressed in our country that Donald Trump is not even touching. In fact, he is in the process of deregulating and making cheaper. Are you listening? It's not that Donald Trump wants to stop the opioids in this country. What he wants to stop is those that are illegally bringing them into the country, because it's cutting into the profits of the big drug companies. Donald Trump makes lots of money off of these drug companies in terms of stock, investments, what have you. So, I'm going to play this video for you, let you hear what Donald Trump's got to say, and then we'll follow it up with the real crisis in America.
Something that has just totally devastated middle America, and I know your administration is making historic strides to help fix the issues. So can we talk a little about opioids and what you're doing?
Yeah, Charlie, so we're going to be putting $6 billion over a fairly short period of time into the opioid crisis. It's a crisis, and you have to include in that the drug crisis period. Drugs are coming across the southern border and coming all over. That's why we will have the wall. We have $1.6 billion toward the wall and fixing up bad walls that are already up, and building them new and rebuilding them, and a lot of work being done. Certain communities, believe it or not, like in San Diego, they want a wall. Nobody likes to talk about that. In fact, I said, don't build the wall there. They're all wanting it. And Jerry Brown, who's doing a terrible job as governor, but no, if you like high taxes and lots of and crime, that's your guy. But they go and they talk so much about the wall. But in San Diego, as you know, there's a long stretch that is demanding the wall. So I said, okay, we're ready to start. I said, don't build it. We'll wait till we get everything approved, because they're having a lot of pressure. They want the wall. Look, we have to stop the drugs from coming in. So opioids are a big problem. We're going to be we're developing potential litigation to be suing some of these companies. If we could only do a painkiller that's not so addictive. This stuff is brutal. You have a broken arm, you go to the hospital, you're there for a few days, you come out, your arm is fixed, and now you're a drug addict. And we got to do something about it. It's so incredibly addictive and so quickly. And we are working here with research money. We're working and very strongly on coming up with painkillers that aren't so addictive and maybe not addictive at all. And I think that'll be a big thing. The other thing we have to do in terms of the drug problem is we have to be very tough on sentences. And, a drug dealer will kill sometimes more than 2,000 people, sometimes much more than that, ruin families, ruin lives, and they get caught. They'll get 30 days in jail. They'll get a fine. They won't even get jail. They'll get a year in jail. And yet if they kill somebody, if they shoot somebody, if they get into a fight and somebody dies, they put them in jail for life or they give them the death penalty. But these people kill thousands of people over the course of their lives through drugs. So we're going to have to get much, much tougher in terms of penalty. And if you want to stop it, you look at certain countries where they have, as an example, the death penalty and say, how's your drug problem? And they will tell you, we don't have much of a drug problem. So I sort of, there's nothing to laugh about, nothing to smile about, but when we have these blue ribbon committees composed of some very nice people, many of whom are in the office, Alex.
I don't want to play any more of that, but what I do want to do is call Donald Trump out for being such a hypocrite. I really, you know, he's talking about how that these people go in for a broken arm and they come out a drug addict. He's talking about, you know, prosecuting these drug dealers that are bringing in drugs across the borders or bringing them in without, you know, because there's no wall up or whatever. But he's not saying anything about the pharmaceutical companies that are pushing these drugs on the doctors, that are turning the doctors into drug pushers. Okay? As you all know, my mother-in-law has been in the hospital from time to time, and she's not, you know, she's recovering from some surgery. And when the last time she went back in for a checkup, they wanted to give her fentanyl or whatever they call it there. And this is highly addictive, okay? Opioid, they wanted to put her on. And we found out that they're pushing this. The drug companies, they are pushing this on the doctors and paying them a lot of money to push these opioids on people and get them addicted. So Donald Trump doesn't say anything about that as far as the quote-unquote legal side of it. He's talking about the illegal side in terms of what they call illegal. So whether it's coming across the border or whether it's quote-unquote legal through the drug companies, it's all wrong. Okay? But this is where the hypocrisy comes from. But this has nothing to do with the greatest crisis in this country. And the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest crisis that Donald Trump doesn't even talk about is this. The drugs that they're giving to our children that they say are to medicate them because of ADHD. Now, this is a great website. You may want to take a look at it. I'll provide a link for it. But this is a watchdog website. And what's neat about it is you can actually go on this website and you can click on, where is it? ADHD drug side effects, okay? For all these different drugs. Okay? And every one of these that are legal in this country, all of them have terrible, life-threatening side effects. Every one of them. Okay? But you don't hear Donald Trump say a peep about this. Okay? Let me just read something to you here, folks. ADHD is a cash cow for the pharmaceutical companies. In the last 5 years alone, ADHD drugs account for nearly $40 billion in pharmaceutical profits in the U.S. Just the U.S. alone. ADHD is marketed as a disease in order to justify drugging children. Yet the National Institute of Health has admitted we do not have an independent valid test for ADHD, and there are no data to indicate ADHD is due to a brain malfunction. Let me read something else to you. This is staggering. According to the data from IMS Health, over 4.6 million children 17 and under in the U.S. are on ADHD drugs, despite the fact that the effects of these drugs are nearly identical to what? Cocaine. You don't hear Donald Trump make a peep. He doesn't say a word. In fact, Donald Trump wants to deregulate and make it cheaper for these drugs to come into America. And these are the drugs that are causing the people, the young people, to shoot up the schools. Just recently, the shooting that took place, the mass shooting that took place in Florida, this kid was on drugs. This kid was being treated for ADHD and bipolar and all those things. Listen to me, folks. This is the hypocrisy of our country. Okay? And I'm going to say it again. Shame on you, Donald Trump. You don't mention and make even a peep about this really serious issue in our country. Big pharma, pharmaceutical companies, okay, they ought to be prosecuted in many cases for murder. They're criminals. They don't even have proper testing on these drugs before they hit the market. Not to mention the marketing that is behind this cash cow is unbelievable, people. You would not believe all the marketing that goes in. Not to mention the advertisements that we see through the mainstream media. This is what's wrong in America. This is why the schools are being shot up. This is why the young people are dying. It's not because of guns. It's when you mix these drugs with guns. When you mix them with guns. The guns are not the problem. I will assure you of that. But you're not going to hear anybody make a peep. You're not going to hear it in Washington. You're not going to hear it in Congress. You're not going to hear it. Why? Because most of your governors, most of your senators, they all have stock. They all have investment in the pharmaceutical industry. They're making millions of dollars off these drugs. Do you think they're going to stop them? Do you think they're really going to stop opioids? Even opioids? No, they're not going to stop them. But Donald Trump wants to make you think he's doing something about it because he's dealing with the quote-unquote drug dealers. What about the drug dealers that do it legally, quote-unquote, and they push it upon the doctors and turn the doctors into drug dealers or drug pushers? You're not going to hear this talked about anywhere in the fake news, folks. Now, this is a good website. If you really want to do some research to find out what's going on, they do a really good job here. And they keep up with all the different newer drugs that are coming out, and they give the side effects. Just Ritalin, just looking at Ritalin, the side effects. It's just crazy. 16 warnings on Ritalin causing cardiovascular disorders. 8 warnings on Ritalin causing heart problems. Look, it causes hallucinations, depression, suicide, risk of attempts. 2 warnings on Ritalin causing suicide, risk of attempts. 2 warnings on Ritalin causing agitation. Okay? 1 warning on Ritalin causing anxiety. 1 warning's enough. 1 warning's enough. Okay, that's just one of the many drugs that are being pushed today. And I say pushed. So let's look at Adderall. Let's look at Adderall. 4 warnings on Adderall causing cardiovascular disorders. Isn't it interesting they cause them the same exact side effects? They're all causing just different names. Same drug, different name. You talk about a marketing bonanza here. I don't know if I used the right word there. Look, same exact symptoms. Right there. Hallucinations, irritability, depression, suicide risk, or attempts. So what do all these drugs that they're putting the children on have in common? It's the same poison, just a different name. Hallucinations, depression, heart attacks, suicide risk and attempts. Are you seeing this, folks? Just a different name. Same drug. This is just ADHD, folks. This is just the side effects for ADHD alone. There you go. The same side effects. Depression, anxiety. There they are. The same one. Suicide risk or attempts. 3 warnings for suicide risk and attempts. And hallucinations, depression. You don't hear Donald Trump make a peep about it. Not a peep. You never heard Obama make a peep about it. Never heard the Bush administrations never make a peep about it. Didn't hear Clinton administration. Nobody makes a peep about it. Why? Why? Because they're a bunch of greedy, insane, psychopathic criminals. That's why. They're criminals. They don't care about the children. They don't care about your family. But you won't find their families. You won't find their children on these drugs. Do I need to say any more? You won't find Donald Trump's children on these drugs.